You opened this video for a reason. Maybe you've done it. Maybe someone did it to you. Maybe both. Either way, something about that phrase "disappear without saying goodbye" hit something inside you. And that's not an accident. So stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is going to make you see this behavior, whether it's yours or someone else's, in a completely different light. If you're someone who has ever just stopped replying, gone quiet, pulled back from a friendship, a relationship, a group chat without any explanation, without any announcement, you're about to feel deeply seen. And if you're someone who has had people vanish from your life out of nowhere, leaving you staring at old messages wondering, what did I do wrong? This is for you too. Because here's the thing nobody talks about. The people who disappear without saying goodbye are not cold. They are not heartless. They are not sociopaths who don't care about you. Most of the time, they are some of the most emotionally overwhelmed people in the room. And there's a whole psychology behind why they do what they do, a pattern that's more common than you think, more human than you realize, and more complex than just "they ghosted me." Let's unpack it. First, let's talk about what actually happens in the brain when someone decides to disappear instead of explain, because it is a decision, just not a conscious one. When a person feels emotionally overwhelmed, whether it's a relationship that's become too heavy, a friendship that's started to feel like a performance, or a social environment that's draining every ounce of energy they have, the brain kicks into something called the threat response. Now you've probably heard of fight or flight, but there's a third response that doesn't get enough attention: freeze, or in social terms, disappear. The brain's amygdala, which is basically your internal alarm system, detects emotional danger. And for some people, especially those who grew up in environments where expressing feelings led to conflict, rejection, or punishment, the safest option the brain learned was silence. Not because they don't care, because caring too much and not knowing how to handle it feels like drowning. So the brain does what it was trained to do. It protects you. It says if you leave quietly, there's no confrontation, there's no rejection, there's no pain. And for a moment, it works. The anxiety drops. The chest loosens. There's this temporary relief that feels almost like freedom, but only for a moment. Now, let's make this real. Because this isn't just a theory, you've probably lived this. You know that feeling when a friendship starts to feel heavy, like every conversation is something you have to prepare for, like showing up is a role you're playing, not a thing you're enjoying. Or maybe it's a relationship where you've tried to say how you feel and it didn't go well, or you imagined it wouldn't go well, so you just pulled back. One less text, one more excuse, until eventually the silence just became the answer. Or maybe it's simpler than that. A group chat you muted, a colleague you started avoiding in the hallways, a family member you just stopped calling. You didn't make an announcement. You didn't have a conversation. You just faded. And somewhere in the back of your mind, maybe you even told yourself they probably didn't notice. They are probably fine. But you checked, didn't you? You checked to see if they reached out. Here's where it gets interesting. The people who disappear without saying goodbye almost always share a specific psychological profile. And it has nothing to do with being selfish or careless. Most of them are what psychologists call conflict avoidant. Their nervous system genuinely experiences anticipated conflict, even a difficult conversation, as a physical threat. Their heart rate increases. Their thoughts spiral. Their body prepares for war over a text message. And a lot of this, not all, but a lot, traces back to early life experiences. If you grew up in a home where expressing emotions was met with anger, dismissal, or emotional unpredictability, your brain learned something very specific: saying how I feel is dangerous. So instead of developing the skill of expressing discomfort, you developed the skill of exiting, quietly, cleanly, without a trace. It's a coping mechanism that made perfect sense when you were 8 years old, when you had no power, no language, and no safe person to talk to. The problem is, you're not 8 anymore, but your brain didn't get the update. Now here's the twist, and I want you to sit with this. The people who disappear, They often feel more guilt than the people they left behind. They lie awake at 2 a.m., thinking about the conversation they never had. They draft messages they never send. They see something that reminds them of that person and feel a pang of something they can't quite name: guilt, grief, longing, shame. They are not indifferent. They are trapped in a pattern they didn't choose, fueled by a nervous system that was wired for survival before it was wired for connection. And the cruel irony is this: the very thing they are running from: conflict, rejection, the fear of being too much or not enough. They create more of it by disappearing. They become the person who hurt someone. They become the story someone tells. They become the unanswered question in someone else's healing journey. The escape route becomes its own wound. But let's look at the other side too, because this conversation isn't complete without it. If you are the person who was left without a goodbye, who woke up one day and realized someone had quietly removed themselves from your life without explanation, I want to say something to you directly. It is not always about you. I know how much the silence sounds like a verdict, like somehow you were the reason, like if you had been different, funnier, easier, less needy, more interesting, they would have stayed. But here's what psychology tells us about ghosting and silent disappearances. More often than not, the person who leaves without explanation is not making a statement about your worth. They are revealing the limits of their own emotional capacity. They couldn't hold the weight of an honest conversation, not because you were too heavy, but because they haven't yet learned how to carry. That doesn't make it okay. The pain is real. The confusion is valid. The grief of losing someone who never officially left is one of the strangest, most disorienting feelings a human being can experience. But it was never the whole story. And if you are the one who disappears, if you recognize yourself in this, here's what I want you to hear. You are not broken, but you are operating on an old program, one that kept you safe once and is costing you connection now. The part of you that goes quiet when things get hard, that's not weakness. That's a child who learned to survive. But you have the ability now, as an adult, to learn something new. To stay in the discomfort for just a few seconds longer than feels comfortable. To send the imperfect message. To say, "I'm pulling back, it's not you. I just need space," because that sentence, as simple as it sounds, changes everything. It's the difference between leaving someone in confusion and leaving someone in peace. And you are capable of that, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Disappearing without saying goodbye is not a character flaw. It's a trauma response wearing a social mask. It's a nervous system doing its best with the tools it was given. But understanding why we do something doesn't mean we get to keep doing it forever. The most courageous thing a conflict-avoidant person can do is stay, even briefly, even imperfectly, even in a way that feels terrifying, because connection, real connection, lives in the moments we choose to remain when every part of us wants to run, and you deserve that kind of connection, the kind that doesn't require you to disappear to feel safe.